Now I'm just going to create some interesting shapes here, maybe bring some ridges up along the points here. Now when you're using the move brush, if you go to the brush menu, go to curve and turn on accurate curve mode, you can actually use the move brush now to make some really nice little spikes and pointy bits along the crests of these sort of plates here. So it's a really nice way to create little spikes on your character, which just adds that extra little bit of aggression to the design. So that's kind of cool. Let's do another little echo of that down here, and then execute our Dynamesh with Control, click, and drag. We'll do a few more of these down the length of this, just so it feels like a spiny, sort of dangerous character here. Those little spikes will add a whole lot. There we go. And execute Dynamesh. I'm going to go to the Dam Standard brush and just sort of play around with some strokes flowing down here into the brow, up here into the forehead plates. No need to be too specific. I mean, again, I want to stress from these early stages that you can strive to be real gestural in ZBrush. It's just a matter of kind of turning down your Z intensity, not being too strong with things. You don't have to, you don't have to go in here and make really bold lines like that. You can just make light little strokes, especially if you're using a Wacom pen and you've got pressure sensitivity. You can do things like this, like we've just done here, and just sort of pick out shadow and pick out highlight. If you can sort of strive to that kind of gestural, sketchy quality, you can really have fun exploring shapes when you're doing these sphere sculpts. And I think doing sphere sketches like this is not only a fantastic way to learn ZBrush, it's a really good way to learn new brushes and new techniques. A lot of us at my work will sometimes just, do little doodles at lunchtime, play around with new techniques and new brushes, and you learn a lot that way that you can then bring into your work on a more regular basis, because there's just something really expendable and kind of nice about just working on a sphere like this and dynameshing it and turning it into something real interesting and new. I'm going to bring a little bit of sort of ridges here along the corners of the brow there. And remember how I said if you hold down the Alt key you can pull things straight out, so I'm just doing that. I'm pulling little spikes out from the temples here. And then we'll execute Dynamesh. That's nice. That creates a nice little surface quality there, little spiny bits. There we are. Going back to my move brush and bringing the brow forward a little bit here, and sketching in a little bit of furrow in here with this wrinkle. Now I'm going to mask out this portion of the nose bridge here. I'm going to take the move brush and I'm going to go back and turn off that accurate curve mode so it's a bit less pointy, and I'm just going to bring the brow in. I'm going to Control click a few times to feather the mask so these things can move together, and I'm going to clear the mask and just bring them in a bit like that. I just want to kind of furrow that brow a little bit. And going back to my clay tubes brush, now I'm going to turn the alpha off on my clay tubes brush now. And what that's going to do is, instead of giving me a really aggressive brush like this, it's going to give me a much more subtle brush. See what happens now? It softens the edges and really helps me build up more subtle forms and organic forms. I find this really useful. I want to bulk this neck up a little bit, and these trapezius muscles as well. There we go. And you'll notice as well the clay tubes brush has this beautiful quality where it adds into the recessed areas first. So it's really good for sort of filling in deep furrows, but not losing form. I want to suggest a little Adam's apple there. And I'm going to take the standard brush and just pick out the little notch there. That's called the sternoclavicular notch because the sternum is right here and the clavicles are attaching here. So that's, with most anatomical terms, it's just a really plain way of saying exactly what it is. It's the notch between the sternum and the clavicles. I'm going to take that standard brush, turn down my Z intensity, and just build up those two heads there to that sternomastoid. Go to my clay tubes brush and then start thinking about that clavicle again. And the sternum. Go to my move brush and just expand that chest out a little bit. I want to build up that bone structure there. And I'm just going to put some hollows in here. I just want to catch some shadow in between sort of these ropey bits of muscle along the neck called the platissimus. Just want to suggest those. They don't have to be super, literal. I just want to suggest those bits by just picking out some shadow here and there, picking out some highlight. There we go. I just want to bulk up that trapezius just a little bit right there where it's grabbing onto the shoulder. There we go. And I'm going to fill in that hollow with the vertebrae. That would be the 7th cervical vertebrae right there. Take that move brush and just sort of tweak these shapes a little bit. Cool. Now I want to do a little bit of play with this ear here. I'm going to mask the ear out, and let's turn on solo so those tusks aren't in the way. And I'm going to invert the mask. Remember, that's control clicking on the background. And I kind of want to change the rotation of the ear. I'm going to go to rotate. I'm going to unlock the gizmo, and I'm going to place it right there in the center of the ear. Let's lock it again. And I just want to tip that ear back. I want to change the angle of that ear, and I want to move it back a bit on the head. Now don't worry here where it's sort of crashing into the head. That's actually, don't worry about it, because what's really nice about this is, watch this, when we move the ear, invert the mask, and I'm just going to take the mesh here and just bring it up to meet the ear. There we go. Once we're happy with the placement there, I'm going to control click drag once to clear the mesh, or clear the mask. I'm going to go into frame mode so you can see this. And I'm going to control click and drag a second time, and it will rebuild that mesh, and then I can just smooth away any seams there. That's the beauty of Dynamesh. That's what's so powerful and so awesome about Dynamesh, is it allows you to do things like that before Dynamesh were frankly impossible. We'll turn off that mode now, the solo mode, so we can see the ears and the horns together. And I think that's an improvement. That drops those ears down behind the horns in kind of an interesting way. I think that works a bit better from the side view. If anything, it just gives us a bit more clearance between the ears and the face. The ears should sit just behind the center line of the head from the side view, so I felt like they were a bit too far forward. So let's give it a little bit more attention from the sides here. We'll go to our damn standard brush, and I just want to sort of accentuate these sort of plating things that we've got going here. So let's play with these sweeps coming down. These are neat shapes. Now with the damn standard brush, it creates this nice crease, but if I hold down the Alt key, it pinches, and it makes a wonderful sort of raised ridge that's really nice for plating and wrinkles and things like that. Really like that aspect of this brush, so I'm going to go ahead and accentuate those. And again, remember what I said about masking. Masking is sort of the most important thing to be aware of when you're working with ZBrush brushes. Use them in conjunction with masking. Look at that. I've masked out up to the edge of this plate. Now if I bring these plates, this mesh forward underneath it, invert my mask, and then bring this back, I can create a really nice, convincing overhang between those two plates. Look at that. See what I get there now. We'll do the same thing here. We'll mask up to this point, invert the mask, and then just take the move brush and just tuck that under invert the mask, and then we'll just pull that out a bit. And that just gives us a real nice, believable plating there. A lot of times we'll need to do a bunch of ideas for something. You'll get a brief for something at some point in the day, and we'll need to turn out a bunch of ideas for the next day. And being able to just really loosely sketch like this with Dynamesh and then bring it into Photoshop later in the day and do some paintovers for the next day is really valuable. It's a wonderful way to work because typically we just don't have a lot of time for ideation when you're doing design work. You have to be able to work real quickly, and being able to sketch things like this in ZBrush and be able to think real gesturally like this, and not worry too much about getting super specific, allowing yourself to be loose and then refining things as you go is a really valuable skill, a valuable way to work. I'm going to hide those horns again just by turning on solo mode, and I just want to resolve where these plates go here. Smooth some of this back a little bit. Nice, we've got some really interesting shapes. It's definitely time that we start thinking about that mouth. I've just had so much fun with all these other bits that I haven't thought about it yet. So let's go ahead and take a look at the mouth. I'm going to save my work. So now we want to add teeth to our character. And this is an interesting opportunity for us to see how to bring an OBJ file in and add it as a subtool. An OBJ file is just a generic file extension for 3D models. So in the files for this video series, there is a file called teeth.ztl. So if we load those up now, just go to Tool, Load Tool, and select teeth.ztl, you'll get this nice model of gums and teeth that you can now load in as a subtool. So if I go back to our creature head, remember it's right here, and then I go to Append under the Subtool menu, I can then append those teeth in just by selecting them. Now we can't see them because they're sitting inside the head. If I select the teeth and make them the active subtool and turn on solo, you can see they're right there. We'll turn on transparency so that we can see them more easily. I'm going to go to Move, and let's just move these teeth out front. Let's scale them down so they're about the right size. And let's move them inside the head. Scale them down. There we go. There we go. We just want to get those teeth placed inside the head before we create the mouth around them. I'm going to turn off transparency and take the Move brush, and let's just tuck these little bits in that are sticking out on the sides. And don't worry about those teeth yet that are poking out. We'll deal with those. They're not going to be a problem because we're going to have an open mouth here. Alt-click on the head. That selects that as the subtool. Remember, you can select subtools directly here, or you can Alt-click on them in the viewport to select them. And now we're ready to actually push these in and create a mouth. I'm going to save our work.